Hello, this is John Hicks, Executive Director of the National Association of State Budget Officers, or NASBO. I am pleased to present a brief overview of NASBO's Spring 2017 Fiscal Survey of States. The Spring Fiscal Survey provides information about the 50 states' general fund, the fund where most state governments' tax revenues are collected and spent. The survey includes financial information for the last actual fiscal year, 2016, the current fiscal year, 2017, and budget proposals by the state's governors for fiscal 2018. It also includes historical information on state general fund spending and revenues. Let's start with general fund spending and recommended budgets for fiscal 2018. Recommended state spending for fiscal 2018 is expected to increase by just 1%. State spending since the Great Recession has been moderate, an average of 4% annual growth from 2011 through 2017. The 1% amount is the lowest proposed spending growth rate since the economic recovery began. The very limited growth in spending is due to several factors. States are dealing with slower revenue growth, limited budget flexibility due to the impact of fixed costs, and substantial uncertainty regarding future federal spending. Additionally, as states had to adjust mid-year to underperforming fiscal 2017 revenue collections, the budgets developed for 2018 had to correct for some of those changes, resulting in very low spending growth and in many cases assuring a structurally balanced 2018 budget. This next chart shows the program areas where governors are proposing to add this limited funding. The red bars reflect budget proposals for fiscal 2018, and the blue bars reflect proposals back in 2017. Overall, the 1% spending increase reflects about $8.7 billion for all 50 states. That's far lower than 2017 spending increase proposals of almost $24 billion. The amounts below reflect both increases and decreases to the program areas. Out of this modest $8.7 billion increase, one policy area stands out as the primary recipient of the new dollars: elementary and secondary education, noted here as K-12. $6.1 billion of the $8.7 billion, or 70% of the additional money, is for elementary and secondary education. Spending in this area accounts for the largest share of states' general funds, about 35%. It is common for K-12 education to be a top budget priority for governors and state legislatures. 33 state budget proposals include additional funding for education for fiscal 2018, while 11 states propose decreases. Medicaid receives the next largest share of the new money, $1.6 billion in 2018. Excluding a large fund accounting change in the state of Ohio, this amount otherwise would be $3.8 billion. Medicaid reflects about 20% of state general fund spending. 30 state budget proposals include additional funds, general funds, in 2018 for Medicaid. The NASBO Spring Survey also includes a separate section highlighting Medicaid spending. The area of corrections reflects a $1.2 billion increase in 2018. Which is about a 2% increase, continuing a lowering growth rate trend that began in the early 2000s, and even more so in the current decade. Higher ed spending is about flat, and it represents about 10% of general fund spending. Governors are recommending a net decline in general fund spending for all other program areas. Fiscal 2017 is the first year in that total state spending recovered to its pre-recession spending peak when adjusted for inflation. The $807 billion figure represents the fiscal 2008 spending level adjusted 9 years later for inflation. It has taken 7 years from the low point of the recessionary period for state budgets to recover to their fiscal 2008 levels as adjusted for inflation, an unusually long time for that to take place. While this has happened for the sum of all 50 states, 24 states have still not yet reached the equivalent of their 2008 level. Next, we'll look at states' general fund revenues and recommended tax and revenue changes for fiscal 2018. As shown earlier with the general fund spending, total general fund revenues in fiscal 2017 have finally recovered to the pre-recession peak year of 2008, a slow but positive trend of annual growth. Fiscal 2016 revenues grew just 1.8%. Fiscal 2017 revenues are now estimated to grow 2.4%. In fiscal year 2018, revenues are expected to grow at a moderate pace of 3.1%. This chart shows the number of states that reported general fund revenue collections compared to original budget projections. The red bars are the number of states with revenues below budget, and the green bars are the number of states with revenues above budget. In the current fiscal year 2017, 33 states are reporting receipts less than budgeted. This marks the highest number of states reporting revenue shortfalls since fiscal 2010, and the second consecutive year where most states came in below forecast. As you can see from prior years since the recession, this is an unusual situation, especially during an economic recovery. All three of the largest revenue streams are coming in below forecast for these 33 states. States reported that sales taxes are $6.6 billion below budget, corporate income taxes $2.8 billion below, and personal income taxes $2.7 billion below budget levels. These data were collected prior to April tax collections, and indications are that personal income tax receipts are falling even further below estimates. This next chart shows for each year the number of states that reported mid-year budget cuts. In the current fiscal year, 2017, 23 states reported making cuts. All 23 of them reported revenue shortfalls. As with the revenues being under budget, the number of states in the past 2 years that have been challenged with budget cuts is substantially above other periods of economic recovery. This next chart is a summary of the types of tax and revenue increases and decreases included in Governor's fiscal 2018 budget proposals. 15 states had net increases and 12 governor proposals had net decreases. A total of $3.7 billion in total positive. The tax areas with the most activity are the sales tax, other taxes, in this case most notably Washington's business and occupation tax and severance taxes in a few states, personal income taxes, and cigarette or tobacco taxes. Now let's move to Medicaid spending. This bar chart shows the annual change in Medicaid spending and by their differing fund sources. The blue bar is the general fund, the green bar is the federal fund, the purple bar is all funds combined, the red bar is other state funds other than the general fund. Total Medicaid spending, the purple bar, grew 5% in 2016, 5.3% in 2017, is proposed to grow by 3.5% in 2018. The general fund amounts are 2.7%, 5.2%, and 4.3% respectively. The 2018 growth rate of 4.3% is much higher than the 1% spending growth rate for all general fund spending. For the first time in the Fiscal Survey of States, information on the spending for Medicaid expansion in the 31 states that opted to expand is provided. The blue bar shows the federal fund share of that spending, and the red portion is the amount from state funds. Total spending in fiscal 2016 was $79 million, growing to $87 million in fiscal 2017 and $92 million in fiscal 2018. Under the current law, the state's share will grow to 10% in 2020. The state's costs for Medicaid expansion are estimated to grow to $9 million in 2018. Next, we'll talk about state savings accounts or rainy day funds. 47 states currently have some form of savings or reserve accounts. The remaining 3 states have recently just established them. These rainy day funds provide states with one tool to limit disruptions to state services and provide flexibility during an economic downturn when revenues fall below budgeted estimates. The blue bars represent the sum of total rainy day fund balances for all the states. The red bar reflects the sum of all states excluding Alaska and Texas, who have traditionally had very large balances in their reserve funds. This chart is an 11-year look at the total rainy day fund balances. States are building back up their balances during the current economic recovery. As you can see, back during the Great Recession, states drew down on their rainy day funds as one part of a multifaceted approach to manage the revenue declines. If Alaska and Texas are excluded, the 2010 total balance would be $3 billion, was $3 billion in 2010. Since that time, states have built up their balances. Again, excluding Alaska and Texas, the 2018 proposed figure would be over $36 billion. In 2017, several states drew down on some of their balances, mostly in response to revenue shortfalls, but some smaller amounts that were incorporated into their enacted 2017 budgets. One measure of a state's rainy day fund balance is the size of the balance compared to general fund spending. This line graph shows the median rainy day fund balance as a percentage of spending since fiscal 2000. As you can see, for the last 17 years, states drew down on these reserves during the recessions and times of fiscal stress, and on average, built them back up during periods of economic recovery. In governor's budget proposals for 2018, the average state expects to have a 6% reserve. Here are a few takeaways from the NASBO Spring 2017 Fiscal Survey of States. Governor's budget proposals for fiscal 2018 spending expect to grow just 1% on average. States are contending with the effects of back-to-back years of sluggish revenue growth of 1.8% in 2016 and 2.4% in 2017. 33 states are reporting 2017 general fund revenue shortfalls, and at least 23 states have already made net mid-year budget cuts in 2017. Governor's proposed tax and revenue changes would result in a net revenue increase of $3.7 billion in 2018. A slowdown in Medicaid spending growth is expected in fiscal 2018 as states keep watch on federal legislative efforts to change the Medicaid program. And most states continue to bolster their rainy day funds. I hope you found this overview helpful. For more information, read a summary of the NASBO Spring 2017 Fiscal Survey of States, or download the full report at www.nasbo.org.